March 27th, 2009. It's a Friday. Me and my oldest son, my 7-year-old boy, we're heading out of town for his first out-of-town hockey tournament. We're going from Ottawa to Kingston. It's a Kids for Kids tournament, a yearly event. Looking forward to a great weekend, the two of us. And we were driving down the road. It was a beautiful, bright, sunshiny day. We're about, a minute from the arena. I could see the arena. We're driving through the last intersection. And bam! A truck driving about 80 kilometers per hour goes right through a red light. Smashes into the side of our minivan. It hits us so hard it comes up on top of me and it pins me down. Starts pushing our minivan sideways through traffic. And as I was pinned down, all I could do was look back and see my little boy in his side of the van, and there was cars coming off the highway right at his side of the van. And then it happens, and everything stops, and there's broken car pieces everywhere, and smoke coming from the engine. There's a guy running hysterically around our car. And that's when I heard my little boy. And he said, "Daddy, are we going to be late for hockey?" And that was the greatest thing I'd ever heard. When I realized he was thinking more about hockey than being in the car accident, and I realized he was all right. That's when I became the happiest person I could ever imagine. And inside that smashed up minivan became the happiest place on earth. And I realized it's where we are mentally, not where we are physically, that determines our happiness. And it was then that I realized that, there's no guarantee of tomorrow. We have today, and the goals and the dreams and the things that we want to achieve, they have to start happening today, because tomorrow never really happens. And that's what changed my life. 1 week after that car accident, with a sling on my shoulder, I went and gave my first speech to tell my story in hopes of inspiring others. And that's also what this is. This is welcome to the first Mark Hatfield Trip podcast. I was watching a Netflix documentary last night about the Eagles, and I think it was Joe Walsh said he was telling some quote that he'd heard, and now I'm repeating what he thought he heard. But it was, the basic of it was that in life, as we go forward, it feels like all these random chaotic events are happening to us and we're just reacting to them. But when we look back at it, everything has a reason. Everything has a purpose to move us forward in life. I mean, there's a famous Steve Jobs quote that says something along the lines of, the dots don't make sense looking forward, they only connect looking backwards. And it's, when we look back at things that happened in our life and things that were horrible, seemed like nothing was going your way, those are the things that we use to make us stronger and to make us achieve what we've achieved and make us who we are today. I think it's important that we get those stories and we hear them from other people. They inspire us and they keep us moving in the right direction. My story starts in 1985. Some of you might not have been even born then. For me, I was learning to moonwalk, watching Star Wars, E.T. I might have the wrong decade, but that's what I can remember. In 1985, I was 15 years old. And on January 22nd of that year, my big brother Bill said to me, "Today, Mark, we are going to watch the Super Bowl. We sat down on my mom's green couch and we watched a little tiny 14-inch color television. And we had a great time. We were watching Dan Marino and the Miami Dolphins play in the Super Bowl. Dolphins were our favorite team. We were a big fan of Dan Marino, the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. He was only in his second season in the NFL, and he was making and breaking all kinds of records. And here we were watching him in the biggest game on the planet. We're about halfway through the game, eating our popcorn. My big brother turns to me and he goes, "You know what, Mark? If Dan Marino can do so much at such a young, early age," he said to me, "surely someday you could play in the NFL." I was like, "What?" I'd only played 1 year of organized football up until this point. A school in Ottawa, Gloucester High School, very tough school, very good school. A lot of great people have come from there. Adversity tends to breed champions. I remember my first day at Gloucester High School. It's very scary. Grade 9. Other people walking around that, seem like adults. Have cars, jobs, and families, perhaps. My big brother on that first day of grade 9 says to me, "Mark, you know what? Gloucester High School has a tackle football team. You should go try out for the team. You like football?" And I was always in agreement with what Bill said, so I was like, all right, that sounds cool. Remember the end of the day came, and I went down to the tryout room and walked right past it. And then walked past it again, peeked in to see who was there, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I walked in. And then they announced that the tryouts would start after school that day. Pick up your equipment and head out to the field. So that's what I did. Got my equipment, no idea how to put the stuff on. I finally figured it out, and I run out to practice. And like every other person on their first day of football tryouts, they think they're going to be a receiver. So I'm trying out as a receiver. They throw me the ball as it's flying through the... Well, you know when you do something the first time and everybody goes, whoa, that kid's a natural. Well, that didn't happen to me. The ball never even got to me. I got so smoked by this big dude. Lays me out. So I'm lying there on the ground. My vision blurry, kind of coming back to consciousness. I look up at this dude who's now standing over top of me, and my eyes come back to me. And I see this guy, and he's got a beard. He's like the one guy in grade 9 that's already got the beard. A scary dude, man. And I remember just jumping up and running home, getting out of there, going all the way home on my bike. Get to my brother, and I go, "Man, maybe this football thing is just not for me, Bill." And he said, "You know what? If it was easy, it would not be worth doing. Get back out there, and you keep trying." So I did. The very next day, I go back out to football practice. And that year, we had a perfect season. We perfectly lost every game. We were terrible. And here it is 3 months later. Me and Bill are sitting on the couch, the green couch, watching the 14-inch color TV, and he's telling me that someday I'm going to play in the NFL. And I haven't even won one football game yet. I was knocked out on my first day. How am I going to do that, Bill? He's like, "Well, got an idea? You go out to practice. You go out to football games to get better. Let's go down the street to the local sports field, and let's work hard when nobody else is. Let's throw the ball around, get better at that. We'll do push-ups to get stronger, and we'll run sprints to get faster." And we did it. And we loved doing it. We did it all off season. Even when the snow came, we'd head out there in the rain, the dark, didn't matter. We had a great time. Me and Bill out there doing that, and we made it something fun that we we really looked forward to, and we would do it. Next season comes around, 9 months later, I go out, I'm catching footballs, scoring touchdowns, and our team is winning games. It's amazing. My big brother Bill says to me, you know what? This hard work has paid off, and this year, your team is going to make it to the playoffs. And playoffs are a big game. Those of you that are hockey fans from Toronto, the playoffs are what happened after the regular season for some other teams. My first big game, day I'll never forget, October 30th, 1985. I remember being out there, ready for opening kickoff, hearing the cheerleaders and seeing all the smoke coming from a barbecue and smelling the hot dogs the guy was making. The fans were all filling up into the stands. It was a great, exciting feeling. And it was a chance for me to get out there and show my brother that all the hard work we put in wasn't for nothing, that I could help my team win this one game, this big game, my first big game, and that, someday, if we kept going, I would make it to the NFL. I remember they kicked the ball off to us, and on our first drive, we marched it down the field, and we scored, and it felt fantastic. And then we kicked the ball off to them, and they marched it down the field, and they scored, and it went back and forth like that all game long. It was a heated battle, a duel. We fought tooth and nail in the first half and in the second half, and the end of my first big game, we lost. We lost. And as a young person, it was the worst feeling of loss that I had ever experienced. You put everything you got into something and you come up empty, and I didn't know how to handle that situation. I just walked back into the change room, and my head was all, dizzy, and didn't know what to do. I hadn't experienced this before, so I sat down in my spot, and as I was sitting there getting undressed, somebody from across the room yells, "Mark, your uncle's out in the hallway. You got to go talk to him right now." I walked out into the hallway. My uncle was standing there, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and he'd never been to my football games before, so it was kind of weird. And he walks up to me, and he takes me by the arm, and he says, "Mark, I'm sorry, but your big brother Bill died today." You see, my big brother Bill was born with a hole in his heart. And from a very young age, the doctors told him that any day could be his last day. But he never let that get in his way. He took every day and he lived it like it might be his last day. And he set a great example for me. And on that day, on October 30th, I easily could have given up on a dream of making it to the NFL. People would have expected me to. They would have said, "Leave that kid alone. He's been through too much already." But I didn't. I took something that was horrible, a terrible situation. I flipped it around, and I made it my motivator, my reason why I was going to achieve what I wanted to achieve. And I took myself out to that sports field. And I asked friends that come with me, and everybody else coming through the ball for me in the dark and the rain and the cold. And I just kept going. And every year, high school football, I got a little bit better at football. But I was never going to give up. And by my last season at Gloucester High School, when other guys on the team are getting letters from colleges and universities saying they want them to go there and play football, every day I checked my mailbox for one of those letters. And every day there was nothing. I didn't give up. I had that motivation. I had that reason why I was going to make the legacy of my big brother's life of me never giving up on things until I achieved it, until it happened. Not of his legacy of his life be of his little brother quitting on things. So I went back to high school, grade 14, one more year. I was now the adult walking around, driving the car. And by the end of that season, I got one letter from the smallest football playing school in Canada. great school. But nobody from that school had ever gone on to play in the NFL. People told me it was impossible. It's too small a school. If you go there, no one's going to hear about you. You're not going to get any attention. It's never been done before. Don't try. But that was my only hope. That was my only chance. I knew if I was going to go do something that nobody had ever done in the history of that school before, then I was going to have to make an impact from the day I got there. I was going to have to impress not only my coaches, but all the coaches in that league. So they would vote me as an all-star early and often. And then when I graduated, they'd say, who's that kid who won all those awards? Let's give him a shot. 3 weeks before my first training camp at Bishop's University, I was working out hard. Had a job during the day to pay for school. No scholarships. And I cut the tip off my finger. I was working in a warehouse in Orleans. And cut the tip off my finger. Doctor bandages it up. No big deal. I got a couple weeks to go. Rest it up. Keep working out when I can. I'm going anyways, and I'm going to make that impact. Day before I'm supposed to leave, I got my van packed. Some buddies come over and say, hey, Hatfield, we got a good idea. Before you go, let's go play basketball one more time. I'm like, all right, sounds cool. Terrible idea. I broke my ankle playing basketball. Now I'm going to university where I want to make this big impact, rookie of the year, the whole bit. Greatest receiver ever to play. And I got a broken ankle and a big bandage on my finger, the fingertips hanging off. But through hard work, dedication, did I win an All-Star award that year? No, I did not. I did not even play in a game that year. Didn't even play in a game. But I wasn't going to give up. I made that promise. Second year, I've worked super hard all off season. I'm ready to make an impact. I get into my very first game, my very first series. Throw me the ball. Touchdown. Yeah, baby. Weight of the world is off my shoulders. Things are starting to roll. After the game, I'm super excited. Head coach calls me over and says, all right, Mark, we don't think you're going to be a receiver here anymore. We're going to move you positions. They moved me to defensive line. Very cool position. I'd never really played it before. I'm a big guy. I can figure this out. Work really hard. Get into a game the next week at defensive line. I don't know. I think I do all right. After the game, coach calls me over and goes, you know what? That wasn't a good idea. We're going to move you to offense. You're going to play offensive line. All right. Sounds good. I just wanted to make it to the NFL. I'm going to make it to the NFL as an offensive lineman. I weighed 240 pounds. I worked as hard as I could all season long. Watched the guys on the team that were good. Watched guys on TV that were good. And by the end of that season, I got to be about, fifth best on the team at that position. Out of the 5 guys that played it, I was terrible. I wanted to play in the NFL, and I was terrible. I worked hard all off season. Wasn't going to give up. Had that motivation. Year number 3. Day before training camp starts, we're doing a strength test. How many times can you bench press 400 pounds? I've been working hard. I can do it. I could bench press 400 pounds a few times. Let's see what we got here. The year before I did it 2 times. I get under the bar. Big heavy bar across my throat. How many times can I lift it off my chest? Here we go. 1, 2. I'm just tied what I did the year before. I can beat it now. I got 3. I kept going. 4. Super excited. My friends are screaming. I go to put the weight down. High five my buddy. Forget to move my hand. Drop the weight on my hand. Break my hand in 3 places. As the story goes, I called my mom and told her I broke my hand in 3 places. She says, Mark, stop going to those places. I'm playing the whole season with a cast on one hand. But, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, did I win my very first All-Star award that year? No, I did not. 3 years down. 1 to go. Still nothing. Still spinning my tires. But still trying. Not giving up. Many days, weeks, months, wondering what I've done. Made this promise. Can I do this? But just as many days, months, years telling myself, yes, I can. Because it has to come from within. It has to come from you. I just get up and I just keep going. I got 1 year left. I can have a great year. I can get the attention. Pro football. Year number 4. Man, things are going my way. Coaches are telling me I'm having a great year. Coaches of other teams, I just feel it. I know it. I can see it. Finally, it's going to be my year. End of the year, the head coach, Ian Breck, says, all right, guys, we're going to have a meeting. And today we're going to announce this year's All-Stars. It's one of those beautiful days where the sun is shining, the birds are chirping. It's my day. I feel it. We all have them. This one's mine. Walk into the meeting room. It's about to start. Coach gives me a smile and a nod. There's an empty seat up front. I sit right down. Say hi to the guys sitting around me. Coach starts the meeting. All right, guys. Had a good season. Gonna wrap things up today, but first we're gonna announce this year's All-Stars. Congratulations to, names changed to prevent the innocent, Kevin McDonald. Kevin McDonald always won every year. He deserved it. He keeps going. He goes, and Patrick O'Reilly. Patrick had a good year too. But it's what he says next that is forever etched in my mind. He looks down at his paper, looks up, and he says, that's it for All-Stars this year, guys. Nothing. Nothing again. And I got so angry, I storm out of the room. I walk out in the street, up and down the street, back to my apartment. I get so angry, I want to hit something. And then I get so sad, I just start to cry. And I sit down in my apartment, and as I'm sitting there, on a little table beside me is a picture of myself playing football that year. That's not out of the ordinary, because I put pictures of me everywhere. What is out of the ordinary is there's a Sports Illustrated magazine underneath that picture. And on the cover is pictures of NFL football players who played the same position as me. It was a special edition about left tackles in the NFL. And I'd never seen it before. I don't know how it got there, but it was there. And I picked it up and I looked at that picture. And then I looked at the picture of myself. And then back to the picture of the NFL football player. And back to the picture of myself. And as I brought them together, I realized I look very similar to these guys. There's no reason why I cannot achieve that and they can. They've just got a different path. They've had their different mind patterns. They've been told different things. What is it? What is it that I'm missing that they've got? And I started asking people. I said, how do I do this? And the first person says, you're crazy. I said, thanks, Mom, but I'll ask somebody else. And people said, you know what? Just find something else to do. Get a job. Get a trade. Give it up. No one's ever done it. It can't be done. Why would you do it? You never done much here. Till I came across a guy. One guy who helped me out. And he says to me, Mark, you got the passion and you got the desire. This guy believed in me. His name's Glenn Constantine, and at the time, just a linebacker coach. What does this guy even know? Since that time, he's become one of the most successful university football coaches of all time. As the head coach of the University of Laval, he's won 7, 8 national championships. And he says, I see the passion and the desire in you. It's just missing one thing. You got to figure out exactly what it is you want. You got to set your goals properly. You got to write it down on a piece of paper. You got to stick it beside your bed. You got to find out from people who've been there and who have done that how to do this. So he helped me out. He called up some friends of his who had played in the NFL, and I set my goals, exactly what I wanted to do. I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and every morning when I woke up, I looked at that, and I made a plan of what I was going to do that day, that week, to take myself one step closer to that dream. I took that picture of myself, I put it on a big cardboard, Bristol board, and I cut out the pictures. I made like a dream board, something that Oprah made popular years later. And I cut out the pictures of the NFL football players, and I glued them all around the picture of me. And I wrote the steps that I needed, and I asked people, and I said, how am I going to do this? I got to get bigger. I got to get stronger. I got to get faster. I started working out with a strength coach, with a track coach, with a dietitian. I kept moving in that direction every single day. I checked it off. I went in and I did it. And that year, I went back to university one more year. That year, we won a conference championship. And that year, I was an all-star of the Ontario, Quebec University Football Conference. I think that's what it was called. Super exciting. I know. But what was super exciting was that I discovered about writing my goals down, about getting advice, getting help from other people who have been there, who have done that, who have tried, failed, and kept moving forward, of making myself accountable, heading in that single direction every single day. What did that all-star word mean to the outside world? For the CFL, which is another place I wanted to play football, in the first round of the Canadian College Draft, they thought quite a bit of that award in front of the whole country on draft day. The first round, they said, we think Mark Hatfield's pretty good. And the BC Lions drafted me, which is very exciting. But what was the promise, the goal I had made to my brother on October 30th, 1985? I promised I would do everything I could to make it to the NFL until there was nowhere left to keep trying. And what did the NFL think of that All-Star Award from the Ontario, Quebec Inter-University Football Conference? Nothing. They did not care. Why would they care about that? Too little, too late, fella. I had to do more. So I made a videotape of every football game I played that year, and I sent it to every NFL football team, and I waited, and then nothing happened. Because when you wait forever. I had to pick up the telephone. I started calling them. They started hanging up. I'd call them back. They would hang up. I would call back. They would warn me that they would call the police if I called back. I did not call back. But I kept asking people how to do this. I never stopped. I never stopped trying to get help. And then somebody told me that I needed a sports agent, a professional, an expert, someone whose job it was to make those phone calls. So I started calling sports agents, and then I got a guy, a fantastic gentleman. His name is Dr. Ping. And he started calling NFL football teams for me. And 1 month before NFL training camp started, I got a return phone call from the NFL's Detroit Lions inviting me to training camp. Super exciting. time to rest up, get ready for camp? No. Pedal to the metal. I went to Dr. Ping's House of Pain in Detroit, Michigan, where NFL football players go and do martial arts against each other till they bruise and they bleed. They lift weights until they throw up, and they run sprints until they weep openly. I left there. I felt like Superman. Like if a truck had hit me, the truck would break to pieces. I get to training camp in Detroit, and I was dominating every drill of every practice. The preseason games came around. I played every snap of every game. They announced the final roster at the end of training camp, and I got cut. They sent me home. They said, thanks for trying out, but you can go home now. I no longer had a home. I had left my apartment at university, and so I moved back home to my mom's now very old green couch. I had to share that couch with a wiener dog named Fritzy. I wasn't a big fan of Fritzy. I wanted off of that couch and away from that wiener dog, so I kept working out. I kept running hills. I kept lifting weights. I kept doing sprints. And one day I got back from my workout, and there was a message on my answering machine. And it's a message from the Miami Dolphins. And it says, Mark, we've been watching you since day one in Detroit. And under other circumstances, that'd be a pretty creepy message to get. But since it's from the Miami Dolphins, it's pretty exciting. It says, we've been watching you since day one in Detroit. We want you to come down here, do a workout, and maybe be on the team. I'm on the next airplane to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. About to do my workout. The date was October 30th, 1995. It was 10 years to the day that my big brother Bill died. It was 10 years to the day that I made that promise. If you want something badly enough, if there's some obstacle you want to overcome, you never stop trying, because it was 10 years of failure. It was 10 years of people telling me I couldn't do it. It was 10 years of me remembering what I wanted to do, pointing myself in that right direction, and keep moving that way. I didn't give up. I went out for my workout, wasn't afraid of making mistakes, laying it all on the line, gave it everything I had. At the end of my workout, head coach Don Shula says, all right, Hatfield, thanks. Good job. Why don't you go inside? Somebody will be in to talk to you in a moment. So I go inside the practice facility in this big empty room. I sit down, still all sweaty, trying to catch my breath. And as I'm sitting there, this familiar looking guy walks in the room. I'm trying to figure out who he is. He looks straight at me, walks right straight over to me, all beautifully tanned, puts out his arm, his hand, and he says, hey Mark, I'm Dan Marino. Congratulations, I heard you made the team. That day, my dream came true. Find something that you love doing. It's legal. I'm talking to you. Find something you love doing, you're passionate about, you want to overcome. Talk to people who have done it, who have tried to do it. Write down the steps that it takes. Stick it beside your bed. Make out a plan. Remind yourself every single day. Point yourself in that direction every single day. And I promise you, great things will start to happen. We're really looking forward to hearing other people's stories. on this podcast. Your story. I'll have some athletes, some football players, some politicians, scientists, you, me, butcher, baker, candlestick maker. Until that time, Friday morning, I'll be speaking at the phoning me. I'll be speaking at the Dave Smart Youth Treatment Center Friday night. I'll be at Yuck Yucks May 19th, May 20th. That's a little bit of music to go along with it. Collection agency calling me. No idea. The P and Sportsplex May 27th, hosting a big show there. May 25th, opening for the Derek Seguin at Yuck Yucks. Hosting Yuck Yucks on June 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, all weekend. Come visit. Giving the keynote on June 7th at the Proud to Be Me Youth Day at Saunders Farm. Until then, I'll see you later. Stay cool.